Okay, we're going to start applying the color to this particular body. Now again, I'm just going over it with 180 grit sandpaper and doing just a real light sand here just to make sure that I didn't miss anything and that there aren't any little nicks or anything that have occurred to it. And here I'm just doing a basic wipe down. A tack cloth would be really good here too. Now we're going to look at the grain here, and you can see this quilted pattern that's in it. And I'm really going to try and enhance that with the stain. Now I've made up a blue dye. Now I've actually used water for this. You can also use alcohol when you mix it with these dyes. Just kind of keep a record of how much you've made and what kind of ratio that you're mixing. And these dyes are available in several different colors from a lot of different manufacturers. Just check online for that. And now I'm going to apply this with just a cotton cloth. And the real trick is you don't want it to be blotchy or uneven. Try to put it on as smoothly as you can. Now it goes on pretty dark. It's not going to be this dark when it dries. But the idea here is that once we've got it on and we've got a good coat, and be sure to also do your edges as well that are going to show. The idea being that we're going to let this dry, and that where the grain raises is going to look different than where it didn't raise up. And thereby give us a contrast in those highs and lows. And now once we've got our first coat on, I'm going to again take some 180 grit sandpaper and just do a real light sanding. And I'm basically sanding off that grain that raised up. And it's okay, you're going to get back down into the wood on this. As you can see here, how you're really starting to see that contrast pop out. And that quilted pattern really starts to show itself. As you can see here, some of those high spots, well, I shouldn't say a high spot, but some of those softer grains are taking the stain now different than the harder grain is. And that's how you get that contrast built up. And now after the sanding, I'm going to wipe it down again. And I'll probably apply another coat. Now this coat's actually a little thinner than what I made before. Not quite as much dye. And just like before, I'm just going to apply a nice even coat of it with a cloth. Make sure you get it right around the edges. And if you go over onto the side, that's okay. I'm actually going to paint the back after we've got the front stained. In this process of staining it, letting it dry, and then lightly sanding off the grain that raised up, really can build up that contrast over a few coats. And I'm just taking sort of a dry cloth here and just getting off any excess and making sure I've got a nice even coat. And you can see how you get a real three-dimensional quality once you start to get that grain to really contrast against each other. And you can see a little better example here on some scrap wood, where these lighter parts are where it raised up and got sanded, and where it didn't raise up, you have those darker streaks in there. They held a little more of the color in the pigment. And now once that's fully dried, I'm going to take some sanding sealer and we're going to put a seal coat. This just seals up the wood on the front and gives it a little bit of protection while we work on the rest of the guitar. And be sure again that you watch your edges and you get that that top fully sealed. And here I sprayed the edges in, and I'm just going to go across and finish off the top. And you can then let this dry, give it a light sanding, and put, another coat, even a third or fourth if you wished.